RuneScape is going to rework skilling in 2025 to make it, quote, more profitable and a competitive moneymaker for skillers versus PVM. I'm going to be honest here, I'm kind of worried. Not because I think PVM should be the main moneymaker in the game, in contrary, the more methods the better, but more so that Jagex doesn't have a great track record in trying to achieve this goal, and there are other issues too. So in this video, I will talk to you guys about my personal concerns with this approach, what went wrong in the past, and giving some ideas to achieve this goal, without ruining other avenues like PVM. If you're going to enjoy this video, consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 10k by the end of 2025. I'm also really curious to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below. Enough waffling, my name is Chevalric, and let's talk about it. Before we get into my hot take opinions, even though I don't think they're that spicy this time, let's take a look at what Jagex has tried to do in the past to make skilling a competitive moneymaker. I think most of you are screaming stone, and to an extent, wood spirits, taking ore drops off the drop tables of monsters and replacing them with stone spirits, trying to encourage players to use them to get double ores and profit that way. Let's take runite ore for example, previously known as the highest tier ore in the game and quite often found on drop tables like Nexus and other higher tier bosses at the time, which got replaced for stone spirits, which are notoriously poorly priced. This nerfed Nexus money from common loot a little and buffed mining, right? At least making it a viable moneymaker, surely. No, it really didn't. You get a couple of million GP at most from the newest high tier rocks, not including the just released Demonheim ores, versus tens of millions you'd get from PVM and even Nex. So stone spirits didn't work. I guess a good concept, but the execution wasn't great. Which is fine. I mean, the only way to really find out is trial and error, as you don't really know if something like this will work until it's actually in the RuneScape economy. So the second thing they tried was giving us the pre-product instead of the main product as a drop in PVM with the farming seed update. Jagex replaced most herb drops from mobs with seeds, yet again nerfing PVM to an extent, in turn buffing the amount of herbs you can farm per seed and patch, surely making farming a competitive moneymaker. No. At most you'll be looking at a few million GP an hour with this method. Sure, it's low intensity, but it's still nowhere close to the tens of millions you can make with PVM. If I'm being honest, this change actually ruined a lot of intermediate bossing encounters, as their herb drops carried a lot of the profit like at Hellware, making it harder to earn enough cash to progress your gear. So I fail to see how they can change any existing skilling method to be competitive to PVM when PVM allows you to earn tens of millions of gold at the higher end and even 10 million GP with some medium level encounters like DKs. Seriously, go try it. I think at the moment they're like 14 million GP an hour. Now, there are a few skilling methods that are great money, like the Dino Propellant methods, netting you roughly 15 to 20 million GP an hour, depending on prices. Another great, lesser known example is the Charged Fire Making Training Cave if you get lucky with the Pitch Can drop, or Big Game Hunter when you get lucky with uniques. And of course, everyone's favorite skilling boss, Croesus, and to an extent the new skilling boss, which we obviously don't know how profitable it will be just yet, as of me making this video, it hasn't released. All these methods have two things in common. They either feed other playstyles and or rely on a really rare drop. But without the rare drop, most of these methods aren't that great. But I do think that is where the key lies. Jagex needs to create something that benefits that other playstyle, for example PVM, that is only acquired through skilling. Sure, the skilling offhands or Dragon Metals are pretty pricey too, but that is mainly because of their rarity. If you do an hour without getting these drops, you don't make that much money versus in PVM where the common loot can net you a few million GP as it is. So Jagex needs to create a new skilling method where you can make something that benefits PVM and that is only obtainable through that method. For example, the parts of the God Arrows with the Dino Propellant, making it a viable and consistent moneymaker, even with decent experience, something extremely rare, but we will get to that, and not relying on RNG like at Big Game Hunter. Or another skilling boss that requires serious attention and some skill that nets you a nice tidy profit through its drops, pretty much like Croesus. The only issue with something like the propellant method is that it's quite unsustainable for Iron Man, which sure, they chose to limit themselves, but it was, and to an extent still is, outrageous what you need to do to keep some of these supplies up. What they shouldn't do is try and nerf PVM for the sake of skilling, as that clearly hasn't worked in the past and could also cause other issues in the game. Let's say they made seeds only available through farming something. They would be extremely expensive and makes herbs extremely expensive too. Sure, you created a fantastic moneymaker for skillers, but also made the path to PVM a lot harder, as herb lore would probably be stupidly expensive. Something Jagex definitely doesn't want, as PVM to a lot of players is one of the main attractions to RuneScape and something Jagex wants to fast track you to. I mean, look at Necromancy. It's a fantastic example of them trying to get the player to easily do as much PVM as possible. Where creating a profitable method is one headache, the bigger one to me is the way they handle active versus passive gameplay and gained experience, aka AFK versus lean forward. They do so extremely poorly. I made a video in the past talking about how in most cases the AFK method in RuneScape is either just as good or slightly worse than the active method when it comes to experience rates, where I believe you should be rewarded for playing the game actively with higher experience rates than when you're just AFK. I don't believe AFK should be nerfed into the ground, but it should for sure not be as viable of a method as it is right now versus active methods. To not trigger our work AFK warriors, what I mean by that is, sure, AFK rates can be 200k an hour, but the active method needs to be at least 300 to 400k experience an hour to give an actual incentive to truly do this over the AFK ones. As it stands right now, we're talking more about 30 to 40k experience difference when training actively versus passively. And I'm sorry, but that isn't enough. And that is exactly where this update comes into play and the headache that Jagex must have. An active method is probably one where you make money, but making money and getting good experience will destroy any other method. I mean, if you can get both the best experience and best money from one method, then anything else becomes irrelevant instantly. So how do you balance something like that? Well, honestly, I see one solution. One that needs to be worked out properly, but then again, I'm not a game developer and I really hope that if this idea reaches them, they will do so. Let's take Croesus as an example. The experience rates at Croesus are nowhere near competitive to regular methods for their respective skills. Makes sense, as Croesus is a moneymaker. But what if you're able to talk to Galvek, who is standing outside the encounter, allowing you to toggle an option where all your loot gets consumed and you get the absolute best experience rates in the game in return, maybe only allowing you to get the Croesus pet as a reward. This is something Old School did with their boss Zalcano, but instead they allowed you to get uniques but no common drops. This could also be a great middle ground, but at the same time Croesus has like 10 uniques versus Zalcano's 1, so it would still be a good moneymaker, so only getting the pet would probably be the solution. But who would want to do Croesus for no reward? Well, I would, if it means I get serious good experience in all those skills, as my goal is to get 120s and I have plenty of other avenues to make money. Hell, I spend as much money as I can to speed up any skill where possible. And another plus side of this is that developers don't need to develop something new. They can focus on making an engaging, fun, active moneymaker, but allow people who care about experience to use this same method as their training method as well, in return for no unique loot. Obviously, it is just an idea by me, and maybe everyone watching is thinking, Jeff, shut up, just AFK and get your levels. But please dude, just let me play the game. I don't want to watch a TV show whilst I skill every single time that I want to get the best experience rates. I actually want to play the game that I love. But hey, it might just be a me issue, eh? Let me know in the comment section down below what you think, leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and my name's Chevalric, and I'll see you guys in my next video.